cloud is one of the most important skills for almost everybody in the IT industry to know about in 2022. And one of the most popular cloud platforms is Azure. And we have multiple guys in here, Ishant, Sushant, Vinay, who have not only completed Azure certifications, a number of them actually, but also have a lot of experience working with Azure. And we have them to take us through the journey of how you can get started with Azure certifications. Welcome all.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ranga. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Yeah.
Vinay would be the moderator for this discussion. Vinay, you want to
Yeah.
get started?
Yes. So I'll start with my initial lines that every new year presents new 365 opportunities to learn and grow. Use each day to explore and upskill yourself. So with that note, yeah, I'll welcome all of you. And today we'll be, as Ranga mentioned, that we will be discussing about Azure and its associated certification, what we can plan out in 2022. So we will start with a very basic question that I have in mind, and that I should ask all the experts out here is that why should we start with Azure as a preferred cloud? Or is there something called as preferred cloud in today's scenario? So any cool benefits, any cool good service that you guys can think of. So over to you guys. Yeah.
Okay, I would start probably. To be really, really frank, actually, I doubt if there's a preferred cloud as such, right? All the three cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, are like I mean, almost provide you with similar kinds of services at a high level. When I'm looking from a beginner perspective, I think there is very, very little to choose between these three clouds because they all offer really, really good career from a career perspective. Ishant and Sushant, do you want to go a little deeper and look at other aspects of why Azure should be recommended?
Like you said, Ranga, so there is no just like a preferred choice of Azure, but many a companies, what I have seen is because AWS was in the market for quite some time and they started early, the adoption rate of AWS was much higher than Azure. But since now Azure has been in the market for quite some time, and it's a quite mature product, and they have like to like services what AWS been offering. What I am seeing in the market, the right now the trend is, if they are an enterprise customer and they are already using Microsoft workloads, like they are already familiar with Microsoft stacks like Windows Server, Windows Services, they prefer to take Azure as their go-to cloud platform because of the familiarity, because of the licensing benefit what they can get from Azure when they move to Azure, things like that. And similarly, because I work with other customers, I see a trend where if they are a startup company, they don't have any footprint, they tend to go with Google if they want to have a SaaS-based solution, or if they want to start completely from on scratch from the ground up, they prefer to use AWS. So there is no favoritism. Most of the time, the decision maker is the one who decide which one to go to. Sometimes it can be financial, sometimes it can be your preferred cloud vendor rather than what platform you're going to host it,
Mhm.
or the architect you choose to hire for your company. If that architect have a preferred cloud vendor, that tend to shift the project towards a particular cloud vendor. And one more point I want to add before passing on to Ishant is, and more what I'm seeing is many customers or the companies are shifting towards multi-cloud, so they don't want to stuck in one single cloud as well, so they want to have some sort of a footprint on a different cloud as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Pretty much, yeah. First of all, I mean, I think that cloud is not a good to have skill. Cloud is like must have skill, right? So many companies, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 or whatever percentage of companies have already moved to the cloud, and remaining companies have to move to the cloud in next few years. There is no option out right now. And as Sushant rightly mentioned, that what I have seen that most of the big companies, they don't have like their favorite like Azure or AWS. They go by project and need by need basis, and they see that which cloud vendor can provide or fulfill their needs. And most of the time they end up having multi-cloud scenarios. So Azure definitely have few advantages, like they have integration with their local Active Directory, right? And of course, as Sushant mentioned, that if you are already using Windows servers, if you're already using um, you know um, Windows Server and other Microsoft technologies, basically like .NET, right? Then there is your natural progression that moving to the Azure. And of course, as Sushant mentioned, that you get the license benefit. So sometime back, I heard that if you are using AWS, and if you're using like Windows Server licensing, you're going to save, or AWS is going to cost you 5 times more than Azure,
Mhm.
right? So again, you need to figure out in which technology you are working on, and how which vendor basically can help you and fulfill your needs.
Cool.
So
So
yeah.
if I can summarize, basically, if you are working on Microsoft technologies, probably Azure might be the best thing to go with, right? And
Yeah,
also
best
it can
thing and
also.
yeah, best thing and like the cost benefit. Just to touch upon Ishan's point, what Microsoft is offering is something called Azure Hybrid Usage Benefit. So what it means is if the customer already have invested in software products from Microsoft and they have software assurance in place, they get 49% uh, reduction
Ah,
on their Azure cost, which is
Oh,
significant when you think about an
that's reflected.
enterprise scale company and you're shifting heaps of workload into Azure. They try to minimize on their cost upfront. So one way of doing that is, of course, the license save and then reserved instance, which is available in AWS as well. So this is one benefit which Microsoft upfront tell the customer to gain customers into their platform.
Another one more advantage I can think of, that if you think about in terms of security, I think somewhere Azure has little advantage over the AWS. Of course, they are in the market for 30 years and they have invested a lot in the security. I know that I think more than $1 billion still they invest in the security, AWS. So I mean, when we talk about security, I think Azure has more trusted image in the market. For example,
Absolutely.
if we see the US government, they want to go with the Azure because they trust Azure.
Yeah, yeah,
So that could be little advantage of Azure maybe over other
yeah.
clouds.
Ishant, I think as far as the security is concerned, I think we can have a discussion for a month and probably not conclude which one of them is better,
Yeah,
because I'm
everyone
sure
claims
Google
that,
Cloud.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Google Cloud would throw their hat in the ring as well. But
Yes.
yeah, I think yeah, that's a very important thing, right? When you are choosing a cloud platform as an enterprise, uh, security is the most important factor which you take into consideration when you decide. Absolutely.
it was a very nice perspective, and I will say that is certification right way to start learning Azure? What you guys think once you have chosen Azure as a preferred way of learning? So, is it a right way?
I, I think that now, not just Azure, even AWS, or maybe I'm not very much familiar about GCP. Ranga can add that. But when we talk about Azure or AWS, we have pretty good streamlined series of certification designed by company, and they are very role specific. They are pretty much cover everyone. If you are very new to the cloud, you have fundamental certification. You can start with that. You'll know a very high level overview about all the services, what exactly is cloud, how is it different from on premises, and what are the advantages of moving or migrating your infrastructure to the cloud. What are different services can help you in your particular project or so they give you a very high level understanding, both from technical and both from business perspective, I would say. And then you have to decide, or that which technical expertise you have or you want to go with, right? You want to be data engineer, you want to be a developer, you want to be an architecture. And then you have a flow of series of certification which you can take, and you can have required knowledge in your domain, right?
Yeah.
I think that if someone is really, really new into the cloud, someone, for example, few days back, I was talking with Ranga that I received a message that he said, I'm the sales guy and I'm fed up with selling, these kind of products. Now I want to learn technical and I want to start learning cloud. Now, where should I start with? Now, then I was confused a little bit, because if you see AZ 900, you're new to the cloud, but at least you have some familiar basic understanding of technology, right? If you don't know what is server, if you don't know what is text file, or what is some very basic terminology, if you don't know, then there could be challenging. Then you have to work out. I remember sometime back on Udemy, I saw some course by someone who was just introducing these basic terminologies or something. Basically, the point I'm trying to say is right now we don't have any certification to cover those people. If you are absolutely new in technical and you want to get into technical, but otherwise, if you have a technical background, you're pretty good. I mean, they have very good certification, and you just need to figure out the right certification or the series of certification, and you're good.
So, Shan, do you want
Right.
to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So very valid point by Ishant. So it's depending on which background you are coming from. So if you have some sort of a technical background, you know where you want to head to in your next career path. Then I think certification is the right one to go. If you are brand new to cloud, if you are already in the cloud and you're trying to upskill on certain skill set, then I don't say that you need to go on a certification path, because you already know about cloud, you're already well established, you're working, only trying to amp up your skill just in so that you can use those skills to help your customers or help your company. Like Ishant was mentioning, if somebody is coming to me brand new, they say that I am right now a sales guy, or I've been working in IT industry on a support for like 10 years, I don't know anything about cloud, where to start? My recommendation would be just go to Azure Fundamentals or AWS Fundamentals or Google Fundamentals, because um, that has all the ingredients for you to learn what is cloud from the beginning till you get to figure out that what I want to do next. Fundamentals will not take you any longer, but fundamentals will
Mhm.
give you a structure to figure out, okay, I like cloud, or is that what I want to pursue? Or
Exactly.
within that cloud, do I need to take data stream, or do I need to take something else, development side, or do I have to
Mhm.
be an infrastructure guy? So that will teach them, okay, now I know what is cloud and what is the next path. And like Ishan was mentioning, many cloud, especially Microsoft, now have a lot of role based certification. So as soon as they figure that out, they can immediately go to the MS Learn and pick out, okay, I want to be the developer. They tell you, okay, these are the 3 certification you need to learn to become an Azure developer, or these are the 2 certification you need to do to become a DevOps expert. So which is fantastic actually. Or you need to have the right mentor. So
Yeah.
if you find a right mentor, like Ishan was telling, if you are talking to the right guy, they tell that, okay, they gauge their current expertise. They tell them, okay, you go and learn this so and so thing based on your past experience, like CompTIA certification, things like that. Then come to the cloud. Or you already know about it, so skip Azure Fundamentals, because you can probably watch a couple of YouTube videos and learn everything in the fundamentals. Go straight to the DevOps course, because don't waste your time doing Azure Fundamentals, things like that. So depending on who you are talking to.
Yeah, and probably one point that I can add is if we if we say that we have chosen one certification, like Ishant was mentioning, that if a very new guy who's technically very new and doesn't understand the servers and concept like that, then if he chooses one Azure fundamental, say, and if he can see the table of contents, like okay, this is the defined content that I have to study, then he can explore more outside. I mean, he can Google it, you can use YouTube, and then probably he can make a way around this thing. If he has really think that he has to go through Azure, then probably he can figure out these things in the process while learning. So that also can be a good approach. I mean, that's how it will help in exploring new stuff. So that's my point. Yeah.
Yeah, and to add on to the discussion, right? I mean, certificate, like I'm a guy who hated certifications, right? If you came to me 3 years back, I mean, I've worked in the IT industry for 20 years now. So 3 years back, I was like 15 years, and I really hated them. I mean, my first certification was Java, and yeah, did Java certification made me a better programmer? No, because Java certification did not test me on really the important things, right? How do I design classes? My
Mhm.
object-oriented concepts. Like those are the important parts when I'm designing an application, not whether I know a specific trick in Java. But when I came to the cloud, actually, I realized quickly, like after working for a couple of years on AWS, I realized, okay, I only worked with Elastic Beanstalk and Fargate all this while, and I have no experience with rest of the cloud, which is also huge,
Mhm.
right? So I I worked with it for a little while, but even after that, I did not know.
Mhm.
And that's also a place where like certifications really help. So even though I'm a techie, I know like the specific part of AWS I'm using, but I might not know a lot of things that AWS offers. And that's where
Yeah.
I felt certifications have a great like great, I mean, great knowledge or a part to play, right? So it's
Yeah.
where like I go and do a certification. For example, what I did was do an architect certification on AWS, and it gave me a good perspective on everything. I was just restricting myself to compute, but then I found out, okay, there are also amazing data related services. I mean, also like some of the machine learning services, right? So it gives you a wider perspective. I mean, if you are a techie, if you want to get a wider perspective, I think certifications are the way to go. And also, like as a beginner, like Sushant and Eshant are saying, if you're a beginner, you don't know where to go, start with one of the fundamental certifications.
Mhm.
I think that's a wonderful thing to do as well. And second thing is about uh, like Azure specifically. I think the fundamental certifications in Azure are the best ones out there. I've done AWS Cloud Practitioner. I've done the like Google Cloud
Google.
Digital Leader and AZ 100, DP 900, and AI 900. And I found these three, like what like Azure did really well was to separate the fundamentals into three. So there is no one certification, because what happens with cloud practitioner and digital leader is the jump is too big. If I'm not techie and if I have to do cloud digital leader or cloud practitioner, it's much bigger jump than let's say something like AZ 900. And that's where I think Azure did a wonderful job. It gave us a quick step. And then if you want to explore data in Azure, I mean data and AI, you have other things to go through. So
Right.
yeah, I think Azure is much easier cloud to start with as far as certifications are concerned.
So,
Yeah.
yep, I totally agree. Microsoft did a very good job in terms of separating these technologies in the backend and giving them fundamentals so that anybody who is coming from any business background, they can take Dynamics 900, which is all business oriented. Anybody coming from Office 365 Exchange background, they can take MS 900, which is all Microsoft 365 services. Anybody coming from an infra background, they can take AZ 900, which is all Azure fundamentals. Then AI, DP, PL 900 is again really good. Anybody who's into automation, Power Automate, Power Platform, Power BI, they don't have to learn any of the other stuff. They just need to go to PL 900. Oh yeah, figure out. Oh yeah, this is where I want to pursue. Then continue PL 100, PL 200 in that track. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a very good point, Ranga. So you gave me some idea about telling other people that pick out the right fundamentals.
No,
If
I
So
mean,
if
that's one
someone
of the main reasons why we have a discussion, Sushant. I mean, the reason is like, I mean, I know a few reasons, and I know with your experience, Ishant and Sushant, both of you have a lot of reasons, and Vinay has its own point of view. And the goal
Mhm.
was to get all those together.
And if someone is like Ranga or even like me, I also don't like to take exams because that somehow restrict you to just study in a very specific way to clear the exam instead of just go with the open mind. So unless I feel that generally there are three reasons you need certification for. Either you need a promotion in your current job,
mhm,
or you're looking for
Mhm.
the job change, or maybe you're working on some kind of client project and they have a specific need that these developers should be certified in a particular domain. So if you don't have these needs, you really don't need to go for certification, right? Because if you take certification again every year or every 2 year, you have to renew those certification. And let's say if you have 5 certification, then most of the time you'll be just keep busy yourself in renewing your certification instead of learning new things, right? So you need to figure out whether do you really need certification, why you want to do certification. And if you
Right.
like doing it, then perfectly fine, just go and do it. Otherwise, just take those courses and just go with the open mind, just try different things. And both Ranga and Sushant have wonderful YouTube channels, and Sushant has so many certification and he give up everything free. That's amazing. Actually, we know that how hard it is and how much time and energy it takes to create a course or videos, and to create so many courses and giving everything free is an amazing. So there's a free knowledge available, just go and learn, so you don't have to go for certification for no reason.
Yeah, but yeah, that he has Ranga has mentioned a very good point that if you want to widen your horizon, really, and to explore more on cloud, then probably certifications will help in achieving that, because there is every time and now they are introducing some new services, or some services which can be benefited in our daily life. We can use some service and which will benefit our current process. So it is good to have a lookout on those things, maybe not in certification perspective, but as a learning perspective, that they can go ahead and learn something every day, probably constant
Yeah,
endeavor.
and also
So, yeah.
sorry, and also
No
from the
problem.
motivation perspective,
Yeah,
Vinay,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
a lot of people actually want a goal, right?
Mm,
So for me, like certification also becomes a nice milestone, right? Let's say
Yes.
I'm a developer and I don't know where to start. Probably a fundamentals, and I have no idea about the cloud. I can start with a fundamental certification in the area where I'm interested in, and then like that becomes a milestone. And I have another milestone where probably if I'm a developer, I would go for the developer certification, or like depending on the specific role, you can
mm,
have the second one as the next milestone. And also you have
yeah,
multiple levels of certifications. You also have specialty certifications. So
yeah,
these can act as milestones in judging your progress, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that also is a factor to consider.
yeah.
But
So
like
I'll,
So
Ishan says,
yeah.
I think if you are just looking at the value, I mean, at the end, we are all working for enterprises, right? I mean, we are solving some business challenges, and whatever we do should contribute to them. And yeah, if you think you are self motivated, then probably you don't really need certifications, because a lot of self motivated people, I doubt. Uh, I mean, if they see a challenge, they would go for it, right? So if for those kind of people, probably certifications might not be needed.
And also, if you look at these associate or expert level certification, these are not like asking you to correct the syntax or something which we used to
Mhm.
have in Java or in
Right,
all
right.
those certifications. They really give you case studies. They give you
Yeah,
the scenarios, right? And if you actually practice those questions, that really broaden your thinking. I mean, you see that how you are solving this case study and how this something similar you may be having in your organization or the project you're working on. So that really gives you different perspective, um, different ways of solving your problem or different ways to design a particular project you are working on. So from that perspective also you can think about for certifications or go through the questions, try different things. Yeah.
So just that we have touched the topic of certification. We have around 16 certifications available for Azure Cloud, and I have just divided the subcategories of people probably that they are totally new to cloud. Second level is they know a little bit of cloud, and third one is probably they are familiar with cloud technologies and they want to go higher up. So my question is how to decide which certification path to follow. So are there any criterias that you can define? Okay, this is how where you belong, and these are the set of certification path you can follow, or not really certification, but the learning path that you should follow. So is can we define something like that?
Yep, that's a very good point. Like you, first of all, figuring out which certification track you need to go to is based on what your aspirations are and
Yeah.
what your current skill set. And if you know your aspirations, or if you have an idea about your current skill set, then best place I usually recommend engineers who come to me is to go to Microsoft Learn. So when you go to Microsoft Learn on the left hand side, I'm not equipped to share my screen and show it, but Microsoft Learn is a great platform where actually you can tell that, okay, what do you want to pursue? Like if you put like, I want to become an administrator or I want to become a solutions architect, it spits out and tell you, okay, we have like these 20 or 30 certification, but for you, go through this module and these are the 4 certification you need to achieve that goal. And along the way when you study, you probably realize that, okay, I want to continue it, or you realize that, okay, I mastered all the thing I want to learn for doing my job. Some people stop it because, like Ishan and all of you were telling, certification sometimes is not the end goal for certain people. Certain people knowledge is the end goal. Yeah, and there are some specialized certification as well. Like if somebody is looking to understand how to deploy and work on SAP in Azure, they
Mm,
might take specialized certification rather than the traditional track. So
absolutely.
MS Learn is the right combination to use to figure out where you want to go.
Cool.
So basically you have to figure out where you are and where you want to be, right? Once you
exactly.
have that clarification, then it's easy to figure out the series of certification you want to be. So just if we at the very high level, as Ranga mentioned, that we have 3 fundamental certifications in Azure. We have AZ 900, which is almost for everyone. If anyone wants to get into the cloud and just see, what is cloud? I mean, at the very high level, what exactly is the cloud? How is it different? What kind of services we have? I think AZ900 should be kind of must for everyone if you are moving to the cloud as a very new guy, right? And then you have to kind of decide that where you want to go with. If you want to go with be a data guy, you want to be data engineer or data scientist, or data administrator, administrator, then you should follow these DP 203, 300, DA 100, these kind of certifications. And if you want, you can go with DP 900. If you are very new, if you're already working on data for a couple of years, then probably you can skip that. And if you want to start working on the data, then I think you should go with DP 900 also.
But if we try to define our current role, I mean, say for example, I'm interested in DevOps. Say. So what are the set of certifications and how I should plan one by one? Or in case I want to learn, not really working on the certification part, but if I want to learn, what are the set of contents that I should go first? I should, of course, we start with AZ900. Then probably we can get an understanding exactly what are the services that Azure provide. Then probably shall we go with Azure Administrator Associate, or we can directly, there is one certification for Azure DevOps Engineer Expert. So can we skip anything, or shall we go in a particular order? How we should define the path? Yeah.
So there are some certification with some prerequisites. There are some certification you can go directly, like AZ500, for example. If anybody want to be a Azure security expert, they don't have to do AZ900. So if they have prior knowledge in cybersecurity, they know how things work and fundamentals, they can directly appear for AZ500. They get Azure Security Administrator certification, which is considered as one of the expert certification for Azure for a security. Uh, to cover your point, Vinay, so let's suppose you want to pursue AZ400. That particular certification has a prerequisite. You cannot jump directly to AZ400. So there are two prerequisites. One, you can either appear for AZ204 or AZ104. AZ204 is an Azure Development Focus certification. AZ104 is an Infrastructure Focus certification. So it again boils down to, do you want to be a DevOps guy or an Ops DevOps guy? So if you want to be Dev, then you would probably pick AZ204 and then come to 400. If you want to be in an Ops side, you would pick 104 and then come to 400.
Cool.
So,
And just to add on to that, Vinay, I feel Azure DevOps is the most convenient DevOps tool out there.
yeah.
I mean, I've worked with multiple clouds. I've explored DevOps tools on most of the clouds, and I feel Azure DevOps is not only most convenient, but also it's something which can easily integrate with other clouds as well. So if I have to deploy something onto Google Cloud, I can use Azure DevOps to deploy there. I mean, with a few small configurations, and that's wonderful. I mean, that's one of the flexibilities that Azure DevOps offers. And I think Azure has done a wonderful job in actually separating it out as a separate product. It's almost like you don't need to worry about Azure to make use of Azure DevOps. And yeah, that's, I think, a wonderful thing that Azure did. Another thing which I think is a plus point, bonus for Azure.
Eshant, you want to add something?
No, pretty much we covered it. But again, the same point that if you want to go for expert level certification like AZ400 or AZ305, you definitely need to have some kind of associate level certificate. And you can also do one thing. You can also go through the exam objectives, and you can see that how comfortable you are. For example, we were discussing about DevOps. So you just look at the 203 exam objectives. If you feel that, yes, I've been working on this from last many years, and I'm pretty comfortable in these objectives, then you can just try AZ400 directly, right? And while doing that, if you're missing few points, you can just go to 2 or 3 course and just learn that particular areas which you are missing, and then come back to 400. You don't have to really go through the full. I mean, for a technical perspective, you need those certification, right? You have to clear those certification anyway if you're going for AZ400 or AZ305.
But there is no prerequisite as such from Microsoft. That's the point,
There
right?
is actually,
Yeah, okay.
as Susanth mentioned, that if you want to clear AZ400, you have to clear either 104 or 204. So this is a prerequisite for this exam. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
So in this screen, if you see, if it is a hard line, that is mandatory. And if it's a dotted line, this is optional. So if you see
Okay.
400, it's a hard line with 104, and now we have 204 instead of 203. So you have to clear one of these exams.
Maybe while so if you notice on the right hand side on the specialty on the virtual Windows desktop,
Mm.
so that's a new offering from Microsoft called Windows Virtual, or now it is called Azure Virtual Desktop, I guess. That's actually a really by itself is a career opportunity for many people, because those engineers are the one who actually work in big financial companies, where help the customer maintain and manage their session desktop and session host management. So you can give remote app, you can give session host workload to customers. So this particular certification, the Windows Virtual Desktop, is again, you just learn that if you are part of you are trying to get job in that particular area, that's will get you sorted, and you don't need any other certification. You learn everything about how to manage Windows Virtual Desktop or Windows 365 for a customer.
Cool.
And these specialized certificates also have some requirement for SAP workload. I think you need to have architect level certification as a prerequisite, if I remember. And for IoT and for Windows desktop also, I think 104 you need, if I'm able to remember, um, as a prerequisite. Do you remember, Sushant? I think they
No, I'm
have.
not sure
Yeah.
about it. Let me quickly check if there is
No, I
any.
think SAP workloads and IoT probably can be done without any prior
No,
things.
for SAP, I think you need SAP. I think you need. I mean, I can double check this
Yeah,
quickly, but
I can
anyway,
as
the
well.
point here is,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you are already working in Azure, then it's a different story. But if you're not, then I mean, you cannot directly go with the specialized certification, right? You have to have solid fundamental background understanding about Azure before you attempt to have this specialized certification.
Okay. Okay, then moving on, probably the next question that I will have is, once we have chosen the certification, say we have chosen AZ 104 to start with. I mean, what are the tips that you guys want to give around learning a new thing or exploring a new technology? Because you guys continue to learn new stuff. Yeah. So, any tips that you want to give to the viewers out there?
So it's again what, where in the journey you are, like have you already have job and then you did the certification to advance your career, then I would encourage them to like now you learned about other services like Ranga once mentioning. So if you are only exposed to two or three services, imagine a guy who is working in a corporate and his job is to probably work on DevOps, and now he suddenly did AZ 104 and he got shown multiple options within Azure. There are so many other services. Now it's up to that individual to take the responsibility. Do you want to go ahead and explore this? Do you want to add that extra skill set what you have learned? So somehow figure out that how can I get hands-on experience. So if your work doesn't allow you to play around the production environment, I encourage everyone to get a free Azure subscription, use a credit card, then play around with it. Or most of the enterprise companies like myself, like I'm sure you guys, will give an Azure engineer and called something called MSDN subscription. So what it does is it gives you $200 credit on your Azure subscription every month. So it expires, but every month you get $200. So that $200 is pretty much enough for you to go out and try new stuffs and learn in your own time. And you can figure out, okay, this job is not allowing me to expand my skill set. Okay, fine, there's something. If that is what you want, we are deviating our topic into career discussion now. Sorry.
Mhm.
So yeah, get hands-on experience is what I would encourage after learning certification. So don't sit idle.
And it's pretty
Ishan.
easy also, right? I mean, if you're
Mm.
working in on-premises environment, if you have a laptop, then how many things you can try? You can install SQL Server or maybe few softwares. But in Azure, you can literally create networks and virtual machines, and you can link them, and you can try different things, different configuration. It's how easy this is, right?
Mhm,
And if you do it carefully, it will hardly cost you anything. And as Sushant
mhm,
mentioned, that if you do little intelligently, you don't have to pay anything, and you
mhm.
can do almost anything. I mean, most 90% of the things. I mean, for example, you cannot create express route or those kind of things, but you can try and you can and there's so much material also available. That is also not a challenge nowadays. As just
Absolutely.
mentioned that Sushant and Ranga, they both have a YouTube channels, and Sushant has all these different courses. You have material, you have all you need is a browser, right? All you need is a
Yeah.
browser. It's not like you need very high CPU or very expensive laptop, or you need a licenses. You don't need anything. All you need is a browser. Knowledge is free, so basically it's end up having your hard work, and that's it, right? It ends up having
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
motivation to learn something.
Absolutely. And to add on to that, right? So if you look at Microsoft Learn website, I mean, there is specific content which is customized to most of the certifications. If you'd want to do AZ 900, there is documentation on Microsoft Learn on how to do the AZ 900. I mean, step by, I mean, it takes you, it's like a book, right? You just go through it, and at the end, you get you get most of the things that you would need to know to do AZ 900 certification as well. But one amazing thing I found as part of those documentation around specific certifications are there are also free demos. Even without creating a free account, you can actually do the demos right then and there. I mean, that's something I did not see in Google Cloud or AWS, because I mean, if I want to try out a demo on AWS or Google Cloud, I need a free tier account, or I would need to go to Quick Labs or something of that kind. But even as part of the Microsoft Learn documentation, like for most of these certifications, there are a few demos which are created, and those are really wonderful things to know, like do. I mean, even without creating a Azure account, and yeah, get started. And it might be even easier because then you don't really need to worry about whether, okay, will this be paid or something of that kind? How much would it cost? Right? Those you don't need to worry about that as well.
This is one thing I feel that students, I mean, students in the sense, those people newly moved to the cloud, they always have this question. They worry that, I'm providing my credit card, will Microsoft Azure will cost me something if I by
Exactly.
mistake did something. So they always have that fear that my credit card details is with Azure.
Yeah,
So I just want to
exactly.
mention here that if you are using your free subscription, it is not going to cost you anything. Even if by mistake you consume all of your $200, which Microsoft gave free for 1 month, Microsoft will take out all their services. They will stop services for you. I mean, you will not be able to use those services, but it will not cost you anything, right?
Yeah,
So you don't have to worry about if you're using a free subscription. And $200 literally you cannot spend if you
Yeah.
create services, if you do demos and just create lower level of configuration and just delete or drop those resources which you create. Literally, you cannot consume your $200. I mean, I'll be surprised if someone can consume $200 while doing the
and
demos.
And Ishan, I think that fear comes from AWS. I think in AWS, it's possible that you create something
Yeah.
without knowing that it would cost you. I think
Mhm.
that's why people are fearful. I mean, the stories of AWS are very, very popular. Like you leave, like one of the things that like a beginner tends to do is we kind of treat it like on-premise system, right? If I create a virtual machine, large one, and if I leave it running for a month,
Yeah.
it's expensive, right?
Mm.
The best practice would be any resources you create in the cloud, especially when you are doing it just for learning, delete
Mm.
them as soon as you actually
Yeah.
complete your
Or at
version.
least turn on auto shutdown or something like that. You know that you, even if you forget, auto shutdown
Yeah,
can help you like deallocate these services. One additional point quickly, sorry Ranga to interrupt you,
please go ahead.
is like Ishan was mentioning, so many students don't even know that after the first month they are eligible to get so many other services for free for another 11 more months. So
Yeah.
they can pretty much use that subscription for 1 year, and within that there is one virtual machine available, one Azure SQL available, few network, few IPs, which is enough for them to still keep on using that free subscription for like navigating through the portal or showing them where to find things like that. Yeah.
And even further, I would say if you are paying $100 or $200 to learn the cloud, I think that's very small price to pay for
Right.
the knowledge
For
you are
long
gaining,
run. Yeah.
Yes.
right? So it's, I mean, if you are looking at in the long run, I think cloud is a such an important skill today, irrespective of what you are doing in IT, that if you spend something for it, I think you should be ready to do that.
Yeah,
And
it's a
there are
fundamental
people,
skill.
yeah, exactly. And there are people like Sushant who are actually offering content out there. I mean, oh, when I see Sushant's course, for example, right, I feel some of the elements of his courses are even better than a lot of paid courses out there. So, I mean, it's not about the quality, it's just that it's free. And yeah, so please do make use of all the content which is out there for free, and also be ready to pay if there is a need.
And
And if you start learning from almost any course, I mean, every instructor mentioned this in the very start of their course, that you should have a habit of having a budget in your Azure or AWS environment. You can set a budget that, okay, whenever my monthly or whatever, yearly or whatever, you configure that, if it cross this particular this many dollar, then you'll get an alert, right? So that is another kind of check you can add in your portal, which can notify you or alert you in case you forget to delete some resource which you created.
Yep,
That
100%.
once you take the probably the subscription, then you can configure this budget as well. So that will help keep a check on the this thing. Yeah.
One very quick, I mean, the incident I remember I want to add here. Last year, I was trying something. I created few resources, and the same day, in the noon, I was trying something, and then in the evening, I felt sick, and then next day, I realized that I have a COVID, and then I did not open my laptop back, and from home, I had to go to the hospital, and then I was in the hospital for more than a month, and then another hospital for another month. So by the time I
Wow.
came back, and I was not, I mean, at that time it was a life-threatening situation. I was not worrying about what resources I created in Azure. So by the time I came back, I opened my laptop, I realized that I had $700 bill on
Oh.
Microsoft. Then I sent them email to their customer support. I explained that this is how it happened. You can check my login details. I did not even log in last 2 months, and they were very generous. They actually returned all that $700 back to my account.
Wow. That's so nice too. That create extra trust and to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
platform and the company. If they do that, they
yeah,
understand the
Uh,
situation.
yeah,
Yeah, really nice. Thanks for sharing that. I hope you're really well now.
yeah. I'm fine. Back
Uh,
to normal.
nice.
Full to hear.
Mm, it is. So probably the last thing that I want to touch base, probably the exam strategy or generic tips and tricks that you guys have noticed while appearing for the certification. Like, do we have any tips in place that can be utilized while appearing for the exams?
Many people who reach out to me who ask for these appearing for this certification. One, if they are asking for a training, I would encourage them to go to Microsoft Learn and Study, or either use a paid course or a free course. Like you can go to YouTube and find many people creating content specific to either a topic or like certification, which is good. If they are quite new to the Microsoft certification itself, then I would want them to like watch how this is going to be, or talk to somebody to get an experience on what is the online examination all about, what's the format, things like that. Because as a beginner, if you're sitting for a first time online certification, it is quite literally scary, and if somebody have exam fear, it is quite unnerving as well. So gain that experience. If the learning part is different, because I sometimes can learn, but it's very difficult for me to go and like read the question in a pressure situation, somebody
Mhm.
watching me over a camera, I can't even move, and where there is a noise, it's super distracting for me. So if somebody have not gone through it, I will ask them to talk to somebody, or like watch some videos about, okay, how many questions it will come, how much time
Mm.
you have, things like that. Or at least do some mock test. Like there is a website like Measure Up which offer people to experience how a Microsoft examination will be. There is a time based certification, they will ask some random question, so they get a feel of how the real examination going to look like. So that's the only tip I give.
Mm.
And
Ishant?
most of the courses nowadays, the instructor design, they take care of these question part also. So if you go with Udemy, most of the famous instructor, if you see Ranga courses, or in fact any the instructors who create courses, they add a practice test. They add what type of question you're going to see in the exam. So literally, I mean, even though it has changed quite a bit than the certification used to be, but still learning is different. Learning is always different than passing the exam. When you look at the question, there's so many things you just pass by when you hear those videos, but when you look at the question, you realize that, oh, I saw this somewhere, but I'm not able to remember exactly what was point. So you definitely need to practice a lot before you should be familiar. You should be at least getting I would say 80 to 90% marks in the exam before you actually appear for the exam. 80 to 90% in the practice test before you appear for the exam, right? And as I said, in the Udemy itself, there are so many courses, just practice based courses are there, or whatever courses you are taking, there's always practice test. Mostly there's a practice test in the end. So try those practice tests, just see that how many marks you are getting. And if you are consistently getting more than 80% marks, then you should feel comfortable before approaching to the exam. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So probably the one strategy that comes to my mind probably is in the initial 5, 10, 20, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Uh, we should not be, maybe we can mark the question that you think or that I think that it is not that correct. Just mark the question for review. That and at the end, probably when your mind is 100% now, you are comfortable, and then you can get a fresh perspective after a while. So that will be really helpful. So mark the questions. Not that if there's a 50 question, mark 40 questions. It will not help. Mark those questions which which you feel like these are this may or may not be correct. So use that trick to identify that. So
Yeah,
that will
100%.
be,
I
yeah,
actually used it long time back when
yeah,
I sat for the exam. There are some questions which you know for sure that there is something wrong with the question or something
yes,
wrong with the answer. So you
answer,
can
yeah,
actually mark it and later come back and give comment to Microsoft. And if
Yes.
more people are commenting, you will probably get points on that particular question back, because that can sometimes decide you passing or failing. Because yeah, so marking questions for review is a very good tip actually.
yeah,
Awesome.
And mostly in courses, instructor use all the important points in the slides, so you can keep handy those slides. You can take printout if required. And before the exam, one day before the exam, just quickly look at those slides and all the points carefully. That can be a quick, good revision before the exam.
Yeah, I think Ishan, Sushant, and Vinay, you have covered most of the things, right? The most important thing is to practice before you go to the exam, so that you know what's going to come. I mean, like look at the time schedule. Is that sufficient? Getting used to the entire format of the exam. So that's number one. And the second thing I would really focus on is actually taking away the importance of a certification, right? So certification for me is just a milestone. It's not the goal. It does not. Learning is the most important part you need to focus on, right? So understanding Azure, understanding the services, that's the most important thing. So certification is just kind of like remove the importance that you would actually assign to a certification and remove the pressure and just focus on the question, right? I find it very, very simple when I say I just focus on the specific question on the screen, forget about everything else, and read it well and give the best possible answer. A lot of times we are worried about the result, and you kind of think about a lot of things. So, like, I love Rahul Dravid, and I love how he actually. I don't know if you guys watch cricket, but like, I'm a big fan of Rahul Dravid, especially in Test cricket, because the best skill he has is like as a batsman, probably you need to concentrate for 2 days in a line, probably if you are playing a long innings uh, like break it down to single ball, right? If you are watching a ball and you are able to deliver your best for that ball, that's the best thing. So you focus on the question, make sure that you give the best possible answer to each question which is out there, and you make sure that you have enough time and you are within the time restrictions. I think that should be the best thing to do. So focus on learning, and while doing the exam, focus on each question, and don't take too much time on a specific question. I think those would be the things I would recommend.
Actually, this is very important point, that if you are like taking a fundamental exam, there's different stories. So mostly one line question and you directly know what is the answer. But if you go for associate or expert level exam, you literally have case studies there,
Mhm.
right? And nowadays, when our attention is so small, that hardly 7 or 8 seconds we can have attention of something. So this is, I mean, I also find difficult, when you read case study, you forget by the time you're in the fourth paragraph, you forget what was in the first paragraph, right? So this is something you need to practice, while reading. You make sure you mark the important points, or at least remember what are the important points, so the key points on which the answer could be based. Or maybe just read your questions before you read the case study, so that while reading, that if you see something related to question, you register mind. But this definitely required a practice, as Ranga rightly mentioned about Rahul Dravid. You need to have that focus. This is needed in today's time when our attention period is so small.
Yeah,
True,
absolutely.
100%.
And I have
And
actually, go ahead, Sushant.
sorry about that. Ranka, you continue. Last time I interrupted you, so I don't want to
No,
break your chain of
no,
thought.
no. I mean, I was actually just trying to. Oh, okay. I already forgot. You go ahead, Sushant. I'll come back to
Right.
it.
This
So
is
I
what
just
we were
want
talking about.
to, I just want to touch base on what Ishant was mentioning. These case studies are so big, and they have now case studies now have requirements. They have their questions, and you have to go back and forth. And while you do that, you lose touch of the question as well. So my advice to certain people is like, now we have an option to sit for the exam from home or office. Go fundamental certification or sometimes associate level certification, you can sit at home. But I tend to go to examination center for expert level certification, because there are a lot of case studies. Because on
Absolutely.
the examination test center, one, you don't have the pressure of like you're setting up the premises, things like that, nobody's watching you constantly.
Yeah, yeah,
Second, they
yeah.
give you a pad and a pen, so every time you read something you can mark note of it. When you sit
Okay.
at home, there is an explicit rule that you cannot have pen or
Yeah.
paper on your
Yeah.
desk. Very
Ah,
difficult to like crack these case study questions. I
absolutely.
find it extremely difficult.
No, absolutely, Sushant. I think that's wonderful, right? So we would not be able to get to that minute thing. I did not observe that until now, but I think it makes a huge difference being able to write down for me. Like I have a book always in my hand, right?
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
fact that during a certification exam I don't have that was a big hindrance, and I did not think about it at all until now.
Mhm.
Absolutely
But
brilliant,
if you go to an examination center, they allow you to use it, or
perfect.
they give you a blank piece of card or like and
Yeah,
a
yeah.
pen.
I remember. I mean, I did one exam actually, like direct at a center, and all the rest of the certification I did was at home. I
Oh.
remember, like the AWS one, I had a paper which was given to me, and I was able to write down. Especially when we were talking about architecture questions, like you
Hmm.
want to take a number of factors into consideration before you would want to
Hmm.
mark the answer, and it was easy to write down, and
True.
rather than just thinking about it. Perfect. And like the point I was actually trying to mention earlier was that. I did not do any of the Azure certification, so I don't have any experience with the case studies in Azure. But I was actually doing a lot of certifications with Google Cloud, advanced ones, and even there we had case studies. And one of the things I did was during the exam, if there was anything which was related to a case study, I marked it as for later, and I grouped all the things which are related to a specific case study, and I tried to do them together.
Mm.
So that also helped me save time, because reading the case study, and let's say there are 5 questions related to that case study across the exam, each time reading the case study and getting into the complete understanding of that would take time. So I don't know if Azure has the same case study
No,
everywhere.
Azure is better
No.
in that regard. So all the questions
Okay.
for the case study is then on there itself.
Ah,
So you
Yeah,
okay.
cannot
basically that
move
group together
past,
all the.
yeah, you cannot move
Ah,
past the case study until you answer all the question. And once you
ah,
complete the case study, you cannot go back as well.
Yeah, that's the
That is
catch.
actually
perfect.
really good.
That's good. That's
Mm.
Yeah,
good then.
now I'm
But
super scared of Google certification. I don't think I'm wired to like remember the whole case study for the entire
no, no.
Yeah.
examination now.
But I think the Google Cloud Architect certification is the best certification out there in the ones which I've done until now.
Right.
Like, I mean, this case studies thing was a little bit of a tricky thing to do, but overall, I felt that was a exam which tested my architecture skills rather than Google Cloud skills. Right? It's important that, I mean, there it's a architect certification. It's not just a Google Cloud certification, right?
Mhm.
So I feel AWS architect certification is just wired towards AWS, nothing else. But I
Mhm.
felt the Google Cloud architect certification has a little bit more to it. It
Right.
really tested me as an architect.
Right.
Well,
Ranga, you have experience across all three different environments. What is your experience in terms of usability? I've heard that. I mean, I have no visibility on GCP and AWS. Also, I'm very limited. But what I've
Right.
heard that relatively Azure portal and services overall is much more structured, much more easy to use than AWS. I'm not sure about Google, but between yeah.
Yeah, it's more Ishant. I mean, the way I look at it is, if you are playing with the cloud for a little while, the UI does not really matter because you would automate it anyway. So And fundamentally, like most of the times when I was actually playing with this, I would use something like Terraform or something like that to automate the provisioning of infrastructure. So I'm not a UI guy. So I like, unless I'm creating a course where I have to take somebody through the UI, I would use the UI. But most of my tasks, I would actually typically do it through something like Terraform or maybe Pulumi, something of that kind, because it's automatable and it's like something where I just write a script and I can provision whatever I would want. So for me, like I might not be the right person to answer that question, but for me, all the three clouds, I treat them the same, right? If I want to, let's say, deploy an application, I would need to create a database. I would need to create a virtual server, make sure that it's properly secure and things like that, networking and things. So if I use Terraform, for example, right, I would, it's kind of very simple to configure that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I was not
I
able to
agree.
answer your question actually.
No, I get it. Actually, what I realized, I mean, what I felt that AWS, they started very early, and over the period of time, they slowly become more mature, and they acquired so many different companies, who were doing the similar thing. So somehow or other, they have overlaps between different services. I mean, different
Okay.
services can do the same thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That is there. That is definitely there, and that's where I think Google Cloud has a late mover advantage,
Hmm.
because they have, like, if you look at the services, they are perfectly delineated compared to AWS and Azure. I would say that's where a late mover advantage is there for Google Cloud. But I would say having customers is much more important than having that late mover
Yeah.
advantage.
Hmm.
Okay, I guess we guys are running out of time. We are already beyond our scheduled time. So I will just like if there are any questions that are unanswered during this session, probably viewers can post them in the comment, and we would get back to them as like maybe during the next sessions.
Yeah, next
Yeah.
session. True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So properly, thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you everyone for your time. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Vinay,
Sarang.
Ishant, Sushant. I mean, for viewers, I just wanted to leave one important thing. Vinay is in Sweden. Sushant is in New Zealand, and Eshant is actually in Phoenix. And Vinay woke up at 6 a.m. today morning to be part of this call. I mean, I can't even imagine doing something like that. Thank you, Vinay. Thank you, Sushant and
Thank you.
Ishant. I mean, it's
Thank you,
been a
Ranga,
pleasure
for
Thank you,
having
having
you
me
Ranga.
on.
all of you here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you guys. Bye.
Yeah.